Welcome, everyone. I'm Holly Bott, and this is From Surviving to Living, the podcast where raw stories of transformation are told. This is not just a podcast, it's the power of change. God is interested in you. My story is not fiction. I'm a woman, a felon, a sex offender. I did hard time. I am so awed by Jesus, I will risk my reputation and talk about it. He transformed me. He will do that for you. I trust him. I hope you do too. Are you hurting? Are you sick of just surviving? I was too. How does one really, truly live? God causes transformation. It is possible for everyone, thank God. I never saw it coming. Let me tell you how it happens. Get ready for your adventure of faith and life beyond bars. This is From Surviving to Living.
Our future.
Suffer from stress and anxiety? Have circumstances left you worried or scared? Join me on my journey through the prison system where information is scarce, decisions are dictated, and agency is stripped away. From frightening news to the dehumanizing effects of prison, discover with me the secret of real power. I'll reveal the secret of trust and steps towards peace you can take today. Listen until the end. You don't want to miss a word. This is Unintended Idol, Agency and Dehumanization. It was November 2013 when prison staff retrieved and delivered me to my caseworker. Social services in Washington State had called. My youngest son, Tim, aged 11, was in hospital for emergency surgery. Scared, I had many questions. My caseworker had no more information. It would be many days before I received another update. I entered prison with a strong sense of self-efficacy, which, according to the article, Self-Efficacy, the Foundation of Agency, means believing in your own ability to plan and carry out actions needed to achieve certain goals. If people don't think they can make a difference through their actions, they're not likely to even try. So believing in your effectiveness is the basis for taking action. I sought information and knowledge as key to strategic decision-making. Prison starves one of information. I'd now suffered data deficit for years. Are you in the middle of a challenging circumstance? Do you or a loved one have difficult decisions to make? How important is good information to your decision-making? Prison, a small town, is designed holistically for lifelong care. On-site can be found library, chapel, gym, clinic, education, cafeteria, job sites, and more. I had a daily work schedule, planning my day around it. Prison sabotages daily agency, daily plans. 2. Appointments made for an inmate outside their work schedule are not usually told in advance to an inmate in order to prevent their ability to future plan. Future plan for what? I have no idea. At first, I found that odd. It is odd, dehumanizing. According to the research article, The Impact of Power on Humanity, Self-Dehumanization in Powerlessness, power allows people to control outcomes with respect to both the environment and the self. This control is considered to be a fundamental human need. Therefore, it follows that powerlessness will disrupt an individual's sense of humanity. Daily interactions in an unequal relationship appear sufficient to cause us to see ourselves as less human. As the ability to make choices, have freedom, and be able to think in different ways are all qualities thought central to human nature, powerlessness leads us to feel we are losing these essential qualities. In prison, a dizzying array of the unexpected always left me feeling inhibited, ungrounded. Failure to appear somewhere in the prison on time was a reason for me to receive discipline, yet advance notice of an appointment or event was rarely given to me. I constantly felt tense, threatened with the unknown and unknowable. It was at this time that I was threatened with seg again. One morning, my name appeared on the roster for a 1 p.m. property appointment. I also started work at 1 p.m. Unsure where I should go first, I asked for help. Guards and staff offered me no solutions. Chaos reigned here, but punishment ruled. Everyone's best guess? Go to property first. So I did. I made a mistake, however, when I signed out, and a recent inmate escape attempt made this worse for me as it had staff on edge. At the time, Shakopee Prison had no fence. A recent inmate had raced past a guard into a neighboring property. The guard didn't chase, rolling her eyes as she hit the alarm. Guards quickly found the inmate hiding in nearby bushes, and she was given an additional 5 years to serve. It was now a week later, and I leaned against the wall across from property, mentally urging the shuttered window up so I could hurry to work. I'd fast-walked it, a ridiculous hustle. Arms straight, elbows locked, legs churning. We were never allowed to run or jog. It might give the impression of an escape attempt. I was first in line. Without a fence, Shakopee managed inmate locations using sign-out books and locked buildings. Hourly, buildings opened, people moved here and there, and then the buildings closed. Work sites reported in, sign-out books were reviewed. I had signed out to go to work as usual at 1. However, at property, not work, is where I waited. This was my mistake, not indicating my stop at property in the sign-out book. After the buildings closed, my work site reported in as me not there, and I was officially missing. Just then, property opened for business and alarms ripped across the campus. Bundled in my winter coat, holding an armful of books, I sighed. Great. A delay, I thought. I had no idea. Radio squawked to life across the counter. We have a missing inmate, Aho. I repeat, missing inmate, Aho. Surprised, I pushed off the wall and spoke into the chaos. I'm Aho. No one noticed. I cleared my throat and repeated louder, I'm Aho. I'm right here. Heads whipped up. Behind the counter, an older guard slapped her hand on the counter and spat at me. Where's your ID badge? It was pinned to my shirt, trapped under layers of winter clothing. Shifting my books in my arms, I struggled for it. My coat zipper caught, and my books slipped to the floor with a crash. Pounding the counter, the guard demanded, Where's your ID badge? Stunned, I froze. Time stopped, and everyone held their breath. With shaking hands, I stepped to the counter, freeing my badge with a snap. Here, I said, placing it before her. Jerking the card to her nose, she squinted. Next time a guard asks you to do something, you do it! Understand? You don't ignore it! She snarled. She peered over her glasses at me, scowling. Suddenly more guards swooped in, grabbing me by the elbows and lifting me off my feet. Quickly my pockets were searched, turned inside out, and I was yanked down the hallway to a holding room, tossed inside. A metal door clanged behind me. Left alone, I shuffled to the metal bunk and sat. I studied the block wall. Somehow, graffiti was written on it. I read it. Words were scratched into the paint of the bunk. I read that too. I laid down and cried. I lay there for hours. Sometimes a guard would come, peeking through the small square window in the door. I ignored them. Once, a guard came to taunt me. I heard you had a real bad attitude at the property window. Gave the guards there a real hard time. I didn't know how to respond, so I didn't. I cried harder. Eventually released, I was sent to my room and given DLOPs for being in an unauthorized area. I felt wrung out. Timmy recovered, and from hospital he was placed in foster care. Feeling anxious and overwhelmed, my depression came back, and I began missing work at the gym. I was fired in December and placed on UI. I would spend the next 3 months locked in my room 21 hours a day. UI means unemployed, warehoused. I had little money. It didn't matter. I lacked opportunity to make calls, and while Tim remained in foster care, I'd been forgotten as his parent. While I'd been assigned a Washington State public attorney, no effort had been made to contact me. Finally, in February, I risked asking a guard if I could call my attorney. He said yes, and I did. "Hello," she answered, surprised to be hearing from me. "Hi, I have not yet received any news about my son since last November, and it's now February. I was told he had emergency surgery and went to foster care. You're my attorney. How is he? When can I talk to him? How do I contact him?" Surprise leaked out of her voice as she answered, "No one has contacted you?" It was my turn to be surprised. Who would contact me? What should I expect? No one, I threw back. What's going on? "You have a right to visit your son, which in your case would be by phone. You have a right to all information and reports about him. I'm surprised no one has contacted you before today," she answered. I thought, but didn't say, "Why didn't you contact me?" Instead, I asked, "How can we start that process? Let's get it done now, please." Soon, phone calls were arranged around my limited schedule, made more challenging by a 2-hour time difference. I looked forward to receiving a job again so I could be more available. Also upsetting was a sudden price hike to make calls, from 50 cents to $5 for a 15-minute call. Torn in many directions, I struggled to support all of my children emotionally the best I could. I switched to writing more letters and calling less often. I also began selling jewelry and sketches for money. Soon, social services reports began arriving from Washington. Horrible reports, crushing, painful to read. They were also outrageous. Prison shakedowns, raids, riots, and lockdowns could prevent me from making a scheduled phone visit with my son, but failure on my part to call Tim for any reason would be written up by Tim's caseworker as a refusal on Miss Aho's part, an uncaring mother, to visit her son. Knowing this, seeing it, I often cried in my room during a prison lockdown just feet from the phone during a scheduled visit, unable to call. I raged against these lies and mischaracterizations. I grew to hate social services. The article, The Impact of Power on Humanity, also tells us that when people compare themselves to what they think is important, it can affect how they see themselves as human beings. Human nature traits are qualities really fundamental to being human, like empathy and emotions, and they come out when we interact with others. If someone feels like they're being treated as an object, it can affect their sense of self and cause them to emotionally shut down. These people may report a range of emotional issues such as emotional numbing. This was happening to me. I became increasingly withdrawn, disconnected, and numb. I lay in my room for hours, locked in. My weight increased to 190 pounds on my 5-foot frame, and I hated life and myself. In March 2014, I was finally assigned a job in maintenance, but I had nearly 2 years to go before I would experience hope. Listener, are you worried or anxious about something today? Many things? I understand. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6, "Therefore, do not worry and be anxious, saying, 'What are we going to have to eat?' Or, 'What are we going to have to drink?' Or, 'What are we going to have to wear?' But seek, aim at, and strive after, first of all, His kingdom and His righteousness, His way of doing and being right, and then all of these things taken together will be given to you besides." I didn't want to be anxious. I wanted to be taken care of. So I was eager to understand what Jesus said here. I wondered, what does Jesus mean by His kingdom? Since Jesus listed it as the first thing to seek, it must be very important. Have you ever heard of Where's Waldo? A look and find puzzle? Waldo, wearing a distinctive outfit, is placed in a busy picture for the viewer to find. Well, this would be an impossible puzzle if you had the wrong idea of who, or even what, Waldo was. So let's talk about a kingdom. A kingdom is basically a sphere of influence, an area of power. It can be a place to live like a country, or it can be invisible, like social media influencers, whose own kingdoms would be their followings on Facebook or TikTok. Well, God created everything, and everything is His. However, Jesus said something very interesting about the focus of His kingdom right now. Jesus told Pilate in the book of John, "My kingdom belongs not to this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my followers would have been fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here, this world. It has no such origin or source. Where is it then? What is it? Did you know that the word heart is mentioned more than 800 times in the Bible? It is. God says, I am the Lord, more than 150 times in the Bible. Well, that makes a heart emphasized 5 times as much. So what is meant by a heart? The Hebrew word for heart is levav, and it means inner man, mind, or will. So what is Jesus saying then in Matthew chapter 6? Let's read it again with this in mind. But seek, aim at, and strive after, first of all, His sphere of influence in the mind, will, and spirit, and His righteousness, His way of doing and being right. Listener, this begins in your own heart. His sphere of influence over you. Does He have any influence over you? How much? And how well do you know His ways of doing and being right? If your answer is not enough, you are not alone. We are born rebellious to Him, His ways unnatural to us. Paul says in the book of Romans, no one is righteous, no, not one. All have turned aside. Together they have gone wrong. No one does right, not even one. This is the reason Jesus urges us to seek out His ways of doing and being right, to seek out His influence, to ask Him to be Lord, really be Lord of our hearts. Jesus asks us, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? When we are king of our own hearts, we have reason to worry. We have seen our results and we know our limits. God says in the book of Proverbs, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. I will tell you a secret to trust, however, and it is this: there cannot be any trust without first taking a risk. These two things are intertwined. It's the risk taken and the safe landing afterwards that creates the bond of trust. Otherwise, trust is just an idea that is never followed through, and it is trust that creates peace. Have you trusted in Jesus today? Have you taken that risk? Have you followed through with trusting God? I do not know your situation, but God does, and He tells us how to begin. Philippians chapter 4 says, do not fret or have anxiety about anything, but in every circumstance and in everything, by prayer, definite requests, with thanksgiving, continue to make your wants known to God. And then God's peace shall be yours, that tranquil state of soul, assured of its salvation through Christ, and so fearing nothing from God.
Lord, you are my God.
And being content with its earthly lot, of whatever sort that is, that peace, which transcends all understanding, shall mount guard over your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So, listener, take the step in every circumstance, in everything, with definite requests and prayer, with thanksgiving. Make your wants known to God and take the risk, and God's peace shall be yours. Let's start today.
Jesus, my Savior, Lord, you reign, Lord, you rule, yeah.
Dear Jesus, I pray for the person listening right now, and I pray for me. Help us to seek you and desire your influence in our hearts. Teach us your ways of doing and being right. Remind us to pray and thank you in everything. Amen. Look for more episodes that inspire at hollybot.me. Until next time, remember, your story is never over. God's grace is always waiting to rewrite it. This is From Surviving to Living.